Hi, I'm Neville, and this is my son Will. And Will, today, HarperCollins, this is today the 5th of June 2014.
That's right.
HarperCollins have published a book that you've written called The House is Full of Yogis. And it's about your experience of the Hogkinson household, where you grew up, during the ages of 11 to 18, right?
Yes, 11 to 18.
Something like that.
Yeah, about that.
Can you tell us a little bit more about what the book says? It's been creating quite a lot of interest, I think.
Okay, so essentially it's about going from being a very normal, middle-class, suburban family, dinner parties, friends coming around, clutching bottles of Matthias Rosé, Volvo in the drive, aspirational parents. Very normal, middle-class, Richmond, as normal as it gets, suburbia. And it's about Nev, my father, going completely mad after he has a Damascene revelation in Westminster Abbey, and from then on goes on a spiritual quest which leads him towards the Brahma Kumaris. Meanwhile, and this is really where the story takes shape, Mum, although she didn't become a Brahma Kumari or follow it, she's very interested in it, and rather than divorce, which is what would often happen, the family stayed together, at least until I was 18. And so it's really about that period. And Mum embraced celibacy. She wrote a book called Sex is Not Compulsory, which was about celibacy within marriage. And you and Mum started appearing on television when I was about 16, just trying to meet girls for the first time. And so it's about this, and it's about, I suppose, I wouldn't say it's about the Brahma Kumaris or you becoming a Brahma Kumari. It's about the impact that had on a 12-year-old boy. It's that perspective. So it's a memoir, it's a rite of passage book, and it takes a hopefully non-judgmental and quite comic look at the whole situation.
I must say, Will, that I was quite nervous of reading it, and I think you were nervous of showing it to.
Very nervous.
Because I think I was the last person that you showed the proof copy to. Just about, anyway.
Well, Mum had read it.
Yeah.
Tom read it about the same time as you.
Right.
It had been edited by that point.
Right.
It had been through the editing process. I didn't want to show it to anyone, for creative reasons. I didn't want to show it until I was happy with it. But I was nervous showing it to you because I would say that it's not harsh in any way, but it's quite unflinching in a sense about the impact this made on me in particular. And I think the point is that Tom, my brother, was 2 years older. So he was 14 when you became a Brahma Kumari, and he was already off on his own. He
was water off a duck's back with him.
He was fine, and he's a different character. He's a more blithe character than I am. At that age, it was really confusing for me, and I didn't know what was going on, and I found it very strange. So if there would be, we would have in the style of the 1980s, we would have Victorian prints or Edwardian prints of very slightly suggestive posters for Coca-Cola and things like this, all up on the walls, and suddenly they came down and there'd be pictures of smiling Indian deities. I didn't know what was going on.
My aim had really been to bring more love into the home. One of the things that pushed me into thinking that the way of life that we were leading wasn't adequate was the sense that it was becoming rather dry and over-striving. There wasn't enough time together to be really real with each other. But there was also this downside that because of my intoxicated state, if you like, this newborn spiritual aspirant, I wasn't fully aware of the impact that this was having on you especially. Because I think it was water off a duck's back with Tom and with Liz to some extent, but with you it's clear from the book that it did have an impact that I hadn't really fully understood at the time.
Huge impact. It was an age thing as much as anything. At the age of 12, you're just going into adolescence, which is a big change in itself. That's the thing. The book is really about that as much as anything, So it's about... The point is that I was presented... Okay, this is an analogy which has been used a lot. It's very, very common for a middle-aged man to have a kind of crisis, leave his wife and go off with a younger woman. It happens all the time. We all know that scenario. What's not common is for a middle-aged man, or at least less common, is for a middle-aged man to have a kind of profound revelation and throw himself towards this very, very different, not just lifestyle, but different group of people. Now, all of a sudden, all of these certainties that you've had before and that you've been told things to sort of move towards have gone out of the window. And now you've got this new set of certainties which you have to embrace. And that was very, very hard. But having said that, I'd say once the kind of initial shock of the new went, there's a lot that was positive. I mean, with the Brahma Kumaris, I didn't feel anything negative. I found a lot of wisdom. Is essentially a peaceful message. Reincarnation made sense to me, even though that was a very, very different idea to
scientific materialism.
But there's things that didn't make sense to me and still don't. Things like the 5,000-year cycle. It doesn't make sense to me. But that's not to say that I'm completely rejecting it. It's just, this is now I can take it or leave it. But at the age of 12, 13, you can't. This is a worldview, and all of a sudden you're presented by your father, who's essentially your role model, with a new worldview, and you're saying, right, forget about that old one. This is the one now. Get rid of the, forget about the, forget about the career. Just be a yogi. I mean, it's a lot to take on board.
Yes.
So, what I say, this is the conclusion I make in the book. What was gained was greater than what was lost, but it took a while to come to that conclusion. And ultimately, what I think is that, as soon as you become an adult, as soon as you grow older, you make the definition for me of being an adult is taking responsibility for your own life and making your own decisions and not blaming anyone else. So there's absolutely, so now I don't feel any bitterness. I feel that there's the Brahma Kumaris had so much wisdom and real love. I think you became probably a more well-rounded person. I mean, one thing I'd say about you discovering meditation, that it made you a sort of calmer, kinder, more considerate person, but it turned me into a nervous wreck. So there was.
I don't think that's true.
No, I know, I'm joking. But I'd also say, by going through this process, you probably found yourself sort of seeing me as a person rather than as an extension of yourself. And for that reason, you could see that I'd be a better Brahma Kumari than you could ever be. Again, I'm being silly, but I felt that there's an element of that. Did
you?
Yes, that even though you're saying, well, yes, now you can, I'm seeing you as yourself, and I no longer have the ego attachment. But I felt there's a very strong feeling from you, especially early on, that you would absolutely love me to be a Brahma Kumari.
Right.
Which actually, if that was completely true, that you didn't see me as an extension of yourself, it would just be one possible route.
Well, I think it became that, didn't it?
It did.
Yeah.
It did. Now, the thing is that I also feel the book isn't just about my rite of passage. I think it's about the rite of passage of the 4 members of the family. When you got into this, it's like you're saying, it's like being a newborn or first flush of love. It's all new. And so after a while, and that doesn't bring rationality. Now, after a while, you grow into it, and you can see the like every belief system and every community, there are strengths and weaknesses. There are things you need to work on. There are things that that maybe you didn't do right that you can learn from. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
That's how it is.
Yes.
Now, that was the same for me in the sense that I could learn. I could start seeing there's a hell of a lot of wisdom from the Brahma Kumari message. But I didn't need to worry about taking that path myself because I didn't feel that it was right for me.
Right.
Do you see what I mean?
Yes.
And I felt that it was in the same way that it was, Tom as well, although Tom was a very, like I say, he was a very blithe character. But after a while, I felt that he learned quite a bit from it. And again, didn't decide to take that route.
It seems to have informed his career too. His work with the Idler magazine has been all about taking more time for reflection, for merriment, for the enjoyment of life, not in just external ways, but reflective ways too.
Well, I think what will happen, and I see it happening already, is that a lot of the messages contained within this Brahma Kumari worldview and philosophy it's just going to go into the mainstream. You know, so I'm not saying that people necessarily have to follow this lifestyle, necessarily be celibate, but necessarily be vegetarian. But you know, people will start taking for what they need, and so they make. You know, you see that people talk about mindfulness now. They're really just talking about meditation. Vegetarianism. I'm vegetarian, and that was something which I took, and I felt benefited my consciousness, I suppose. Do you see what I mean?
Yes.
So I feel that what will happen, a little bit like when Christianity began, it was a sort of extreme, small, persecuted cult, you could say, and then it goes into the mainstream. Same as Islam, same as Buddhism, same as every religion ever. And I think with the Brahma Kumari faith, I feel that that's probably beginning to happen. You know, there's less people are less threatened by it. You know, they can see the positive message because it's really just about peacefulness. So I would say the book is really it's about a rite of passage, but not just for me, it's about a rite of passage for everyone. And in a way, the message is that you need to learn your own path with your own wisdom and take the wisdom that's around you. So I feel no bitterness towards the Brahma Kumaris. I don't feel I lost anything because I never became a Brahma Kumari. Instead, what I did was I took a lot from it. Do you see what I mean?
Yes.
But something which I feel is key, you can't do something just because you think it makes intellectual sense. It has to be totally from the heart. Now, I never got that feeling of transcendence from meditation. So it felt more, my path felt to go into the world and to be involved in the world and to be involved in writing and books and all these things that I now make a career from. So all I'd say is that I've got a very respectful and healthy relationship with the Brahma Kumaris because I never became one because it wasn't right for me. But I can see the wisdom, and and also I feel that actually you had no choice. So this is something I was saying the other day to someone. You know, they said, "What did you feel bitter about it?" I said, "No, not at all. Because how can you feel bitter about someone following the path which is right for them?" You know, and that's what I saw. But that comes with maturity. You know, that comes with when you're older.
That's come across in some of the reviews of the book. Actually, people seem to have picked up on that, and they're actually saying, you know, that's one of the central messages that they gain from it, along with the absolute hilarity of it. Because, as you indicate, my problem was that I didn't come into this through my head. I came in through my heart, totally, but my head hardly understood anything. So I was doing things because I was in love and I was told that these would be helpful, but I didn't know why I was doing them half the time. And so
and probably not consider the impact necessarily.
No, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. And so, but that also has provided the fertile territory for your incredible sense of humour that comes across. Because here's Nev trying to be spiritual, every twist and turn of fate and destiny in the home, and failing at every point, but hugely funnily.
Well, it was you had insurmountable odds. I mean, you know, you had Tom in the meditation chamber, you know, picking his nose and then kind of flicking what he found up there in my face. You know, and when you're dealing with stuff like that, I mean, why bother? You know, you may as well give up. So there was, you had things like that to consider. I mean, that's also, again, I can laugh at it all because I've got a sense of detachment. I mean, that's a big yogi message, and I think it's something which is very worth remembering, you know. So I mean, for any Brahma Kumaris who read this book, mustn't take offence because it's all done from the perspective of a 12-year-old boy looking at all this stuff and going, what's going on? You know, and actually I hope that my affection for the Brahma Kumaris and for you comes through. And also, I'd also point out, it's really about, you know, it's a family story, you know, essentially. So, I think people will get that.